during broad daylight, a craft was picked up on radar, came in, and landed out on the range in New Mexico. And he goes out there in his Jeep, and he's, a young, brash officer in the Air Force, and the craft is there, fully materialized, solid, sun shining off of it, seamless, and then it dematerializes, and all that's there is what looks like a heat wave disturbance in the air, but in the shape of the craft. And then it phases in, ding, and it's back in this dimension. And then, ding, disappears. And it does it several times, showing him what they can do. And then it stays in this dimension, and ET emerges out of it, and says to him, and he says, "Who goes there, friend or foe?" They're going, dude, it's like, so lame. But anyway, so, and the ET says, "Neither." To you, but the ET was there wanting them to stand down their radar systems that were scalar weapons that were interfering with the ETs and had resulted in several crashes. And so Corso said, and this was all taking place through a little box that was on the ET that was a thought-actuated technology that was electronics. And so telepathic, but not really, it was electronic. And the ET, Corso said, "Well, what's in it for me?" And he admitted, very brash and kind of egotistically. And the ET said, "A new world, if you can take it." Great title for a book. A new world, if you can take it. Well, that was 61 years ago. I think it's time we take it. It's time for a new world. Not a new world order, but a new planet. All right? So that's what you need to begin to wrap your mind. How do these ET craft manifest? Well, you want to hear more weirdness? Yeah. So one time we were at Mount Shasta, and I'll play this for you, but we're sitting in circle, we're doing the meditation, we've done the remote viewing, and we're there after the vector, where we've invited them. Suddenly, there's this tone that comes out of thin air, like an electronic crystalline tone, beautiful, that materializes in the air. And it goes from one side of outside the circle to the other. And everyone with their eyes shut, what they see in their mind, the tone materializes in their imagery in their mind, a spherical, pearlescent, almost gunmetal gray, but pearly looking sphere that goes bloop, 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 right across the circle and back to Mount Shasta. Everyone saw it. Everyone had this experience. They heard it, but the sound manifested the form mentally. Now, with a little more of a click, little frequency click, the whole thing would have been solid in this dimension, but we had a lot of military surveillance on site. So it stayed in that dimension. Is this getting too weird? No. We ain't started yet, honey. Let me tell you. So I'll show you weird. Now, so the high strangeness that Dr. J. Allen Hynek talks about associated with the ET and UFO phenomenon is because it's only strange because we don't understand it. And let's be honest, if you to take your iPhone or this video screen and show Thomas Jefferson this, you probably burned at the stake as a witch. It would be sorcery. It'd be magic. And as Arthur C. Clarke said, any civilization sufficiently advanced to get here, all their technologies and the manifestations of it would look like magic to us. And so, as I began to explain all this to the CIA director and his wife, and the CIA director, I lost him. But the wife, and when I described that really what they're doing is that they're using these other dimensions, but in a routinized way, where it's routine, to have electronics that go beyond this three-dimensional space, time, to in through other dimensions that interface with consciousness and thought, as accurately as we're interfacing with our cell phones, with radio towers, and with each other. And she looked at me and she said, you know, I knew it had to be something like that. Now this is very mainstream science lady, head of the chief operating officer of the National Academy of Sciences, the most prestigious scientific group in the world, one of the most. And so that's when I realized, well, you know, I think people are ready to hear this. That we don't need to sort of cover up in the UFO community any longer the truth about transdimensional, interstellar, ET phenomenon. Because if you just are studying the physical phenomenon that we can understand from 20th century and early 21st century human sciences, you're going to miss 99.9% of it. Every time, all the time. So this fund of knowledge, this field of knowledge, let's call it, which is a big field that we're going to harvest here today, that has to be mastered in order for you to go out and understand what's going on around you. Because otherwise, you're sitting there, you're doing these protocols, and all of a sudden, there's an anomalous tone that moves around you, and then, bing, there's a camera running, and in the camera image is an ET there waving at you. We're going to show you an image like this. Or something that looks like an orb. Now, I don't mean the orbs people take photos with flash photography. That's dust particles and insects, 99.9. None of the camera work we do has any light, flash, boom. It's all in pitch black. So that's really how Bijou, the ET that is from Andromeda, appeared a few years ago at Joshua Tree. Is that we were taking a break, and I went out in the East Field in Joshua Tree, and this thing the size of a grapefruit appeared right on my right shoulder, right beside my right shoulder, about a foot from me. And a couple other people saw it. It just blipped in and out very quickly. I went, oh, they're here. And so I said, well, we need to get, and it followed me. It was for a few seconds up the path going back to the group. I said, we need to get the group back together because they're here. And the senior people who've been on many of these understood what that meant. The new people were going, what? No. So we get there, and all of a sudden we get back, and we hear 4 or 5 people, not human, talking right outside our circle. But you can't see anything. And I had, like military grade, you have to do the Homeland Security stuff in the United States to get them, a night vision. Nothing there, but just there's a group of ETs talking right outside the circle. But they were not materialized in the flesh yet. So a member of my team, Raven Nabulsi, has a camera. She puts it on a 3 or 4 second shutter open and asks them to appear in the camera. And one of them does. And you can see there's an orb and a cone of light that illuminates the chairs and with the sleeping bags on it, because it was really cold. We were up very high in November out in Joshua Tree Wilderness. And there's this ET floating outside the circle, waving. He's floating along smiling. And he has a teleportation thing on his head. You'll see it. So the whole thing is so amazing. And it's like, but no one with their naked eye saw anything. We had the orb appear. We heard the voices speaking, not any language anyone knew. Someone took this picture and asked the ET to appear in it. He did. And there it is. Most important picture in the ufology history, actually, because it was a senior ambassador from the Andromeda Galaxy. Of course, no one in ufology knows about it because this stuff isn't possible. Well, it is possible. And we're doing it every single day. So that's the kind of experience, how they can evolve. Now, on the other hand, it can go from something that strange to something like we're sitting in a circle at that same spot another year, and we're in this deep meditation, and a craft materializes about 50 feet to the east of the circle, so low that if I had stood on my chair and jumped up, I could have touched the underside of it. And it comes over the south end of the group. There's about 30, 40 people there. And it's making this strange sound. It goes almost like a didgeridoo. And it's exactly like that. And it passes over, no lights on it, totally unilluminated, and passes to the west side of the group and dematerializes in thin air. Now, I wish we had a camera running at that time. We didn't. But it was so close you could have touched it. It was fully materialized. Another time we were there, and there were 4 ETs without their craft. They were teleported there that were physical, I mean in the flesh, and standing by one of the Joshua trees. And we looked, and I thought 4 people from our group had gotten up from their seats to go pee or something. And I looked around, all the seats were there, and there was 4 ETs. And when we drew attention to them, and when people got a little too excited, they just dematerialized. Because they're afraid that a bunch of giant gorilla primates will stampede them, kill them. So, no, this is true. So part of the protocol is stay calm, don't do anything sudden, because they've had bad experiences with humans doing things that end up in bodily harm or death. So it's a very serious part of the protocol is to stay where you are, stay centered and calm in that expanded state of consciousness, and let them come as close as it's safe for them to come. Very important part. Don't go rushing towards them. So these sort of experiences, people say, how many times does something like that happen? I said, thousands of times. And we never go out for a week where we don't have contact, ever. This thing in Arizona, every single night. And then people in the rooms, and it's like, it's amazing. So but it happens in ways that are not like what you're thinking. Because if you read the UFO literature and you're locked into the paradigm of 3D materialism of the 21st century, you're not going to understand it. So this is why I'm trying to share with you the sort of weird ways that these civilizations appear in this dimension from their star system. Now, added to this, and I call this the cosmological indigestion that's going on, is the fact that there are experiences people have with interdimensional beings that aren't extraterrestrial. So there are extraterrestrial biological beings from physical planets with physical star systems and physical spacecraft that can dematerialize, if you will, and go through various dimensions and arrive here that are ET. There are other intelligences that are from other dimensions that are not extraterrestrial, that can sometimes appear in similar phenomena. Does this make sense? And they become conflated. A very obvious example would be poltergeist. Now, I was in the ER once, and the nurses called me a warlock sometimes, because I did all this kind of cool stuff with patients that they knew I was doing. I started a heart once when nothing else would work. Boom. And so that was a trip to work with. But so this man was in trauma room 1 and had, I think he had been stabbed or shot. I can't remember. But anyway, he died, and we couldn't save him. And he had been very drunk, and it was a traumatic death. And so, he was a direct admit to the morgue, as we say.